On April 2nd of 2014, the Associated Press released a report exposing how the US government recently attempted to topple the Cuban government yet again. This time the plot hinged on the creation of a communications network called Zunzuneo, which was essentially a primitive version of Twitter. The plan, which was cooked up by the US Agency for International Development, USAID, and the US State Department, was to build up a large following of users and then push them towards revolt. The network was built using shell companies and financed through a foreign bank to hide their connections to Washington. The Obama administration defended the program, saying that it, quote, had disclosed the initiative to Congress. Of course, we all know it's perfectly alright to use covert operations to topple a foreign government, as long as you let Congress know a little bit in advance. No big deal, they just want to be kept in the loop. As shocking and absurd as these revelations may be to the general public, the truth of the matter is that this is just the tip of the iceberg. The US government and its allies have been using the internet as a covert weapon for some time now. Much of the evidence of these activities got mainstream coverage, but the corporate media is very careful not to refer to that evidence in the context of current events. So, let's connect a few dots here. In 2011, it came to light that the US military had developed a sock puppet software for creating and managing fake online identities. These sock puppet accounts were to be used to spread propaganda on social media sites, forums, and blogs. The software, which was described as an online persona management service, allows one soldier to control up to 10 separate identities based all over the world. When this program was exposed, the US government claimed that the program was never to be used on English-speaking audiences. Considering that these are the same people who swore up and down that the NSA surveillance program never targeted US citizens, we can take that with a grain of salt. But it's worth noting that they explicitly acknowledged in their statement that the program was intended for covert operations in foreign countries. A leaked document recently made public by Glenn Greenwald showed that the UK's GCHQ has been running a similar program through a unit called the Joint Threat Research Intelligence Group, or JTRIG. According to the documents, JTRIG relies on two primary tactics. One, the injection of false material into the internet in order to destroy the reputation of its targets. And two, the use of social sciences and other techniques to manipulate online discourse and activism towards desired outcomes. Among the methods promoted in the document were false flag operations, posting material to the internet and falsely attributing it to someone else, fake victim blog posts pretending to be a victim of the individual whose reputation they want to destroy, posting, quote, negative information on various forums, luring targets into sexual encounters in order to destroy their reputations, sending emails and text messages to the target's friends, neighbors, and coworkers, and, quote, crafting messaging campaigns to go viral. The documents place an emphasis on using online techniques to trigger events in the real world. Now remember that the copycat Twitter network designed to topple Cuba was put together by USAID. USAID maintains a public front of humanitarian aid and democracy promotion, but the Cuba scandal confirms what many geopolitical analysts have been saying for years, that USAID, like its sibling the National Endowment for Democracy, is nothing more than a branch of the US intelligence apparatus in disguise. This confirmation also further exposes Washington's hand in toppling the Ukrainian government earlier this year. Remember Victoria Nuland, the U.S. State Department diplomat who got caught in a leaked phone call discussing who should and should not be allowed in the new Ukrainian government?
What do you think?
I think we're in play. The Klitschko piece is obviously the complicated electron here, especially the announcement of him as deputy prime minister. And you've seen some of my notes on the troubles in the marriage right now, so we're trying to get a read really fast on where he is on this stuff. But I think your argument to him, which you'll need to make, I think that's the next phone call we want to set up, is exactly the one you made to Yachts. And I'm glad you sort of put him on the spot on where he fits in this scenario. And I'm very glad he said what he said in response.
Good. So I don't think Cleach should go into the government. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, I guess... You think, in terms of him not going into the government, just let him sort of stay out and do his political homework and stuff. I'm just thinking, in terms of sort of the process moving ahead, we want to keep the moderate Democrats together. The problem is going to be Tony Book and his guys. And, you know, I'm sure that's part of what Yanukovych is calculating on all of this.
I think Yachts is the guy who's got the economic experience, the governing experience. He's the guy, you know, what he needs is Cleach and Tony Book on the outside. He needs to be talking to them 4 times a week, you know. I just think Cleach going in, he's going to be at that level working for Yatsenyuk. It's just not going to work.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. Okay.
In December of 2013, that same Victoria Nuland made a speech at the U.S.-Ukraine Foundation, in which she talked about how the U.S. government had invested over $5 billion in Ukraine since 1991 to strengthen democracy.
as they build democratic skills and institutions, as they promote civic participation and good governance, all of which are preconditions for Ukraine to achieve its European aspirations. We've invested over $5 billion to assist Ukraine in these and other goals that will ensure a secure and prosperous and democratic Ukraine.
She also specifically highlighted the important role that the U.S.-Ukraine Foundation played in achieving their objectives.
The support of the people in this room is absolutely essential. We thank you for all you are doing. We thank you for your partnership all these years, and we look forward to continuing to stand shoulder to shoulder with you as we take Ukraine into the future that it deserves.
Her statements, taken on their own, aren't incriminating. However, if you go to the U.S.-Ukraine Foundation's website, you'll find that many of their programs are funded and run by the U.S. State Department and USAID. Now remember, this is the same USAID that just got caught attempting to topple Cuba. And USAID's connections to the Ukrainian coup don't end there. It just so happens that Larry Diamond, the executive producer of the I Am Ukrainian video that went viral at the height of the crisis in Kiev, isn't just a member of the Council on Foreign Relations and a National Endowment for Democracy and an advisor for the U.S. State Department. His public profile also mentions that he's worked as a consultant for USAID. That's interesting, isn't it? Let's connect a few more dots, shall we? Remember that drama in March where Liz Wall quit RT News on air to protest their coverage of the events in Ukraine? It created quite the stir, even among activists who are usually critical of U.S. foreign policy. That event was staged. A neocon think tank called the Foreign Policy Initiative knew the stunt was about to happen and began tweeting out hints 20 minutes in advance. The first tweet: word on the street says that something big might happen on RT in about 20 to 25 minutes. Then, 10 minutes before Wall would quit on air, they tweeted, word on the street says you're really going to want to tune into RT. Something big may be going down. And finally, at 5:26 p.m., at the very moment that Wall quit, the Foreign Policy Initiative's Twitter account broke the news. RT anchor resigns on air. She cannot be part of a network that whitewashes the actions of Putin. Remember our little friend Victoria Nuland? Just so happens that her husband, Robert Kagan, sits on the board of directors for the Foreign Policy Initiative. Wow. What a coincidence. An organization that Victoria Nuland's husband controls launches a smear campaign against RT at a time when RT is one of the few major outlets broadcasting her leaked audio. And you almost get the impression that there might be a connection there. Robert Kagan also serves on the U.S. State Department's Foreign Affairs Policy Board, and he co-founded the Project for the New American Century with William Crystal, who also sits on the board of the Foreign Policy Initiative. Do a little research into the Project for a New American Century if you want to really dig up some interesting connections. All just coincidences. I'm sure it's also just a coincidence that James Kirchik, who happens to be a member of the Foreign Policy Initiative, released an exclusive interview with Liz Wall on the Daily Beast just 1 hour after her choreographed stunt. Here's James and Liz posing together in a freedom selfie. The Liz Wall stunt was a fairly benign example of social media being used to manipulate public opinion. To really understand how far these kinds of psychological operations are taken, we need to step back to February 20th when a video went viral showing snipers shooting protesters in Kiev. Almost everyone assumed that these were Ukrainian government forces firing the shots, but they weren't. The following phone conversation between EU Foreign Policy Chief Cathy Ashton and Estonia's Foreign Minister Urmas Paet, which was leaked to the public on March 5th, makes this very clear.
Yeah.
So that he has some sort of, how to say, trust among all these Maidan people and civil society. And second, what was quite disturbing, the same Olga told that, well, all the evidence shows that people who were killed by snipers from both sides, among policemen and people from the streets, that they were the same snipers killing people from both sides.
Well, that's.
So that, and then she also showed me some photos. She said that has medical doctor. She can, say that it is the same handwriting, the same type of bullets, and it's really disturbing that now the new coalition that they don't want to investigate what exactly happened. So that there is now stronger and stronger understanding that behind snipers it was not Yanukovych, but it was somebody from the new coalition.
It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that the only parties who benefit from shooting both police and protesters at the same time are those who were working to topple the Ukrainian government. That much is obvious. The only real question here is whether the footage of the shootings in Kiev was filmed and released by the perpetrators themselves. We'll never know for sure unless there's a real investigation. And no, having the primary suspect run the investigation doesn't count. We saw the same tactic of killing civilians and using a coordinated media campaign to pin the blame on a government targeted for regime change in Syria in 2013. But the internet is a double-edged sword, and the truth slipped out.
During our investigation for crimes against humanity and war crimes, we collect some witness testimony that that made to appear that some chemical weapons were used, in particular nervine gas. And what appeared on to our investigation that that was used by the opponents, by the rebels, and we have no indication at all that the government, Syria, the authority of the Syria government, have used chemical weapons.
These were US-backed rebels that killed thousands of innocent civilians with nerve gas. Those that funded this atrocity are still walking free. Those who coordinated the sniper killings in Kiev are still walking free. In fact, they're in positions of power. And yet the mainstream media and these so-called world leaders won't even so much as call them out. Just think about that for a second. Front groups, sock puppets, public relations stunts, and outright murder. That's how Washington and its allies topple governments and manipulate public opinion in the age of the internet. But make no mistake, this is not new.
I thought that it was a matter of real concern that planted stories intended to serve a national purpose abroad came home and were circulated here and believed here, because this would mean that the CIA could manipulate the news in the United States by channeling it through some foreign country. Now, we're looking at that very carefully.
Do you have any people being paid by the CIA who are contributing to a major circulation American journal?
We do have people who submit pieces to American journals.
Do you have any people paid by the CIA who are working for television networks?
This, I think, gets into the kind of getting into the details, Mr. Chairman, that I'd like to get into in executive session.
At CBS, we had been contacted by the CIA. As a matter of fact, by the time I became the head of the whole news and public affairs operation in 1954, the ships had been established, and I was told about them and asked if I'd carry on with them.
Do you have any people being paid by the CIA who are contributing to the national news services, AP and UPI?
Well, again, I think we're getting into the kind of detail, Mr. Chairman, that I'd prefer to handle in executive session.
If you're tired of the mainstream media's lies and you'd like to see those lies broken down with well-researched and well-documented articles and videos on a regular basis, go to our website, scgnews.com. There you can sign up for email updates if you'd like to receive an email notification when new content is added to the site, or look up SCG News and Storm Clouds Gathering on Facebook, Twitter, and Google+. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel, Storm Clouds Gathering, on YouTube.